We're now on page 21 of your working file, looking at the subject of drawing tools. Now, the reason we're having this lesson is so that I can demonstrate for you quickly some of the common ways we can utilize all of the drawing tools. So from this point in time, after this lesson, we'll jump into starting our business card project, and we'll actually start using tools, drawing, creating colors, and all those sorts of things. The thing that I want you to see here is that the process of drawing an object from any one of these tools can be utilized in the same fashion. Now, I'll show you that as we go on. The first thing I want to do is quickly show you how you can drag each one of these menus out onto the screen. You can see right here I've depicted the point in the toolbar that we're working with, which are these four here. So notice each one has a little arrow or a little triangle. We talked about this earlier on. But if you click on that little arrow, you'll notice a little dotted line at the top there. You simply click anywhere on that dotted line and you can drag that set of tools out onto your working area. Now, don't forget that if you're in an earlier version, it may look slightly different. So you might have, like, for example, double lines on the end here or something, but the principles are all very much the same. So I'm just going to quickly drag all of these sets of tools out here so that we can see them, and I'll get you to do the same thing once you've finished watching this video as well. So I'll just pop that there. Now, I want you to notice, if I click on a tool, say click that one there, notice that tool becomes highlighted over here in the toolbar. Again, if I click here, that one becomes highlighted. I might click the spiral tool. So the spiral tool appears and becomes highlighted on the toolbar. Same principle applies from the flyout. Go to the flyout, select one of the tools, and that tool will appear and be highlighted. So you always know what tool you have selected by looking at the toolbar. The next thing I want you to see is that the property bar that we have along here, and I think there's the odd occasion I do call them the wrong names. This is the standard toolbar sitting above, and this is the property bar that you can see here. Whenever you select a tool, you'll notice that the properties for that tool appear up here on the property bar, as you can see. So every tool has a different set of properties. For example, right here we're looking at the star tool. You can set the number of points per side, the outline thickness, etc. When it comes to shapes, I might select basic shapes. Well, I can choose then from all the different types of shapes on the property bar. So the point is, when you select one of these tools, always look on the property bar for properties about that tool. The next thing I want you to know is that these three keyboard shortcuts, and they're similar to what we've seen already, apply to every one of these tools. And I've depicted what each one of them does here. So let's quickly work through them, starting with number one, which basically is constrain, control. So if I click, and this is what I've put this little star here for you, so that you have a point of starting. Whenever you select a tool and you click, the first place you click is called the origin, the starting point. So I'm going to click, and always remember, once you've clicked, hold your left mouse button down. Now, as you can see, my origin remains fixed. No matter where I put my mouse, the origin is fixed. Now remember, this is the same for every one of those tools, okay? So my origin is fixed. If I now put my finger on the control key, watch what happens. Finger on control, all of a sudden my rectangle becomes a perfect square. Now I can go in any one of the four potential quadrants of that square. As you can see, my original starting point or my origin never changes, but I'm always creating a perfect square. That's what control will do. Release your mouse and you will see your final object. Now, the reason why that object is blue, my square is blue, is because in the previous lesson, if you recall, I clicked the color blue. So I'm going to delete that. Again, common to every one of these tools, if you click on a color first, say I click the blue, it comes up and it says, changing fill properties when nothing is selected, will, in other words, no object, will modify the attributes of the tools when creating a new object. And it's asking me, do I want this to be applied to graphics, which are, of course, these objects we draw on screen? What about artistic text and paragraph text? Don't worry about those. For now, we're simply going to select graphic. However, If you're working in CorelDraw X6, you have a number of other options as well. They work in the exact same way. Simply select one of those options, such as Artistic Media, meaning when you use an Artistic Media tool, the default color will be that color we've chosen. Well, for now, we're simply going to choose Graphic and click OK. Now, if I were to set, let's say, the color red, same applies, click OK. When I release, I've got red. If I delete that, what I'm going to do for the purpose of this exercise is I'm going to click the X. Now that's what we call the no color well. It's got no color. So the same thing will apply. I click that, click OK. Now when I click and drag, finger on Control key, there's no color inside of that. And for right now, that's the way I would like to work. All right, let me pick a different shape. This time I'm going to go with polygon. Up on the property bar, the polygon has 5 sides. I'm going to click in here. Now, the interesting thing is, it doesn't look like the origin is part of the polygon, but if you actually were to draw a square around that polygon, the starting point is actually there. Now, that starting point or the origin will be the same. I've got my finger on Control now, no matter what. And really, if I shrink it right back down, you can see that that is the starting point, can't you? So finger on Control, and that helps me to create a perfect polygon. One more shape. We'll go with the star shape. If I click and drag, now I can make that star non-perfect, but if I want it to be perfect, finger on Control, and I create a perfect star shape every time. What about Shift? What does that do? If I click, again in here, right, remember that's my origin, and I put my finger on the Shift key, the origin now becomes the center of the object. Okay, so now I've created a center origin to my object. Finger on Control and Shift, and look at that, I can resize to a perfect star from the center. Always release your mouse first and then let go of the keyboard shortcuts. Okay? Well, that applies to every single shape. So we've covered all 3. Control gives me, finger on Control, a perfect circle or a perfect shape. Finger on Shift resizes from the center. And then the last one here, Control and Shift, is a perfect shape from the center. Look at that. Well, that's what I'd like for you to go ahead and do now, is to simply drag all of the sets of tools out onto your working area. Go through each tool if you like. Some of them do work a little different to others. If you get confused, don't worry. The point is to click in here and try all the keyboard shortcuts. If you want to try some colors, click first to color or do a fill for your object and go from there. One last thing I'll show you quickly. I want to select the call out shape. This is rather interesting. If I click in here, a call out, is a bit like an arrow or a box pointing to a particular point. It's very clever how this has been designed. Finger on Control, and yes, I get a perfect call out. Finger on Shift, and look what happens. Isn't that interesting? My call out now has the arrow part of it in the center. So just bear that in mind. If you see that, that is normal for a call out shape, okay, using finger on Shift. So have a play with all those, see how you go, and we're about to start our project.